Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I am Paul John Dykes. Tonight I'm joined by Kevin McCluskey. We will try for the next half hour to talk about how Celtic can compete at this level against teams like RB Leipzig. If you hear some acoustic sounds in the background, that is because we do have a band playing next door, and it's quite chilled out, which might help with the ambience. Kevin McCluskey, at half time, we spoke about the next goal being crucial. It came for Celtic. What went wrong after that?
Pretty much everything. I think to sum it up. Um, we just lost we lost the midfield. Spoke about that before the game. That if you're going to win these kind of matches, you need to win the midfield battle. And in the second half, we didn't. We didn't compete as we had in the first half. McGregor's a big loss to us, and Abelgard's not up to match fitness yet, and you could see that. They also stepped up a bit in the second half. I thought Soboslai was excellent while he was on the pitch. Every time Nkunku got the ball, he was just doing something with it, little touches here and there. His pass that led to the third goal was outrageous. Um, in the end, I think what it comes down to is, and it's a hard one to take, we're just not good enough for this level at the moment. It appears, despite all the confidence that we have going into the games, and there's nothing wrong with that. Tonight, I think we certainly weren't good enough for tonight's game.
You finished off your sentence by saying "at the moment." Does that signify that there is hope that Ange could well build something whereby we're not sitting here after a night like tonight having got ourselves back into the game? Some might argue that it was 3-1 going on 5-1 because of the two VARs that were chopped off, of course. But we got ourselves back into the game. It was that man, Jota, who I called anonymous in the first half. I stick by that. I thought he was. But obviously, he needed to pick up his game, and he did. We get back into the game and see the biggest frustration for me, and we're going to have to talk about it. We're going to have to talk about that man, Joe Hart, because when you've kind of been let off the hook a couple of times in a game like tonight, when you know the quality they've got, Kevin, we spoke about some of the individual players that they've got. We likened them to some of the players we had seen in the previous two games at this level. Yet we find ourselves at 1-1, and a couple of decisions have gone our way. But for Joe Hart to do that, when he's got the experience that he's got, for him to do that at this level, and I mean, this isn't just an excuse for me to get stuck in about a player, but it's so frustrating when you're sitting at 1-1, you've got yourself back in the game, then that happens, because it's almost as if, it punches the stuffing out of you. What's your thoughts on Hart? Because, by the way, I don't think it's a good idea to drop him. I really don't, because then the whole dynamic of that defence is going to change if you do that. What do you do in a scenario like this if you're Ange?
It's a tough one. Goalkeepers, it's the most specialised position in the park. Any mistake they make generally leads to a goal because there's no one behind them to cover for them. And I'm loath to change a keeper because he's made a mistake in a game. But the fact is that if they start to make mistakes on a consistent basis, then you have to make a change at some point. I don't think I would make it right now because for me, Joe Hart still got it within him to be a top goalkeeper. He made 3 or 4 really good saves in the game. Some of them happened that the shot was offside, but he doesn't know that at the time. He's still a very good shot stopper. He's still got all that in him. But what he's done for that second goal is it's beyond comprehension. I've watched the goal back a couple of times in the replays, and I can't see the pass he's trying to play. I know it's to Taylor because it's in that direction, but I can't see why he thinks that's a good pass. It's just not on. So it's a lunacy to try that pass. But what can you do about that? You can't really coach that out of him. You can't. It's not a kind of a technical mistake that you can work on with handling or something like that. That's just pure him. It's a very difficult one. I think that you've got to try and work with there. I think you keep him in the team because he's probably still as our best goalkeeper, but he's maybe the next cup game, which comes up in a couple of weeks against Motherwell. That's when you give Siegrist his chance, and you tell him to go and win the gloves in that game, put in a strong performance, keep a clean sheet, don't do anything stupid, and you maybe get the gloves for a couple of weeks. I don't think you can take Hart out of the team straight away, but you've maybe got to now think long term, do we need a replacement? Because he has made a few mistakes in recent games. This isn't just a one off.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to pass it out from the back, and his passing's not his best, as he's just shown tonight. So I don't know. Like short term, I would still need to keep him in, but I think there's now got to be that question mark over his long term viability as a first choice goalkeeper.
And this is an interesting situation for Ange to be in. He's never had this goalkeeper crisis. In the final season under Neil Lennon, there was a massive issue with the goalkeeper position. It was one of a multitude of reasons that the season disappeared without a trace. We didn't know who our number one was. But the chopping and changing didn't seem to help matters, because then you've got a situation at the back where the defence is playing with different goalkeepers behind them. I'm not a massive fan of Scott Bain. I think Siegrist was probably the best goalkeeper outside of Celtic last season, and it was a really shrewd move to bring him in. But it's going to be interesting to see how Ange Postecoglou deals with this, because we haven't seen him in a situation where he's had to look at the goalkeeper scenario. But you're looking at that tonight, and I know that there might have been another gear that they could have gone up if necessary, Kevin, but you're looking at that 1-1 and how long we could have kept it at 1-1, and then the confidence starts to grow, Jota starts coming into the game, then you make your substitutions at that point. So it was one of those moments in the game that was a game changer, not for the better for Celtic, I've got to say. And by the way, I know how good this team are that we've just played, right? I think that the result they had in their opening game in this group didn't tell the full story. We know that there's been massive changes since then. It'll be interesting to see how they fare when they come up against Shakhtar Donetsk in the return game. We were talking before the game about getting a draw away from home and then winning our next two games at home, etc. But that really has changed the complexion of our aspirations, I think, for the Champions League this season, Kevin. How much so are you now looking at it saying it would be good to be in Europe after Christmas?
Yeah, but I think after the Shakhtar game, it was myself and Kev Graham that were on, and I think that was the point we were making. It was that we believed that we could get second spot in the group after that game.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very difficult for us now, but we believed we could get it. But the goal of this season is to stay in Europe after Christmas. So that's now we have to downgrade. Probably second place isn't going to happen, but third place is still achievable. But if we beat Leipzig next week, second place, it's back on again potentially. If we get 6 points in the next two games, it's not. I don't think it's out the realms of possibility. But yeah, I think probably now the realistic goal, and it's third place. It's just staying in Europe. It's keeping that kind of European dream alive past Christmas.
Mm-hmm. I mean, since A Celtic State of Mind started in 2017, Kevin Graham and I have had some real ding-dongs when it comes to European aspirations. And I've seen it on social media as well, whereby some highfalutin Celtic fans are saying that you lack ambition if you have this mantra, oh, it's great to be in Europe after Christmas. But I think I would counter that by saying that the team we've got here is still in its infancy, really. Ange Postecoglou, as a Celtic manager, has only been in the door for a season and a half. So to expect where we were under Neil Lennon to transform within 18 months Celtic into a Champions League team, I think would be not only ambitious, but, I just think it's a wee bit optimistic. The thing with Ange is that he does fill you with belief, especially the way we had been playing for a spell earlier on this season. He did fill you with belief that we could go toe-to-toe with some of these big clubs. When he's speaking about it, he talks about facing these teams and playing the way that he wants to play and still trying to get the results that way. I don't think it came down to that. Yeah, we were opened up far too easily. But a lot of what happened that went wrong tonight was basics. It was slack passing. No matter who you're playing, if you're going to continually give the ball away, they're going to punish you eventually. It's just that at this level, they're going to do it a wee bit more clinically. So when I'm looking at everything Ange just said, and everything I've said about this European campaign, I think that you get on this wave of optimism and you start believing, yeah, we can get second place. But really then reality kicks in and you say, well, the team's only, not even 18 months old, Kevin. Should we really be thinking about doing well in this group, or should we be saying, you know what, Ange's going to learn a lot this campaign, as are the players. It should have a galvanising effect on a lot of these players who don't have the Champions League experience, and we should really be looking at next season? Or would you go with some of the naysayers on social media who say that lacks ambition as a Celtic fan?
So I think one of the best things that Ange has done for us is give us the belief and the confidence again. From where he's taken us, from where he picked up the reins to the game against Real Madrid, we're sat there buoyant before that game thinking, do you know what, it's Real Madrid, but we could go out and get thumped tonight, but I think we could maybe give them a game. I think we can do this. That's what Ange does. He lifts you, he gives you the confidence that you can do it. Maybe after these two games there is a bit of a reality check, and where we are right now is that we're not a Champions League team. We maybe a Europa League team. Maybe that is where we're at. And I don't think either opinion is particularly wrong. Where I come at it though, from the Celtic point of view, of my feeling on this, is that we pretty much had 10 years of dominating Scottish football and did nothing with it in Europe. Mm-hmm. And that's where my biggest disappointment comes from. Celtic now should be a Champions League team, and Ange should have been coming into something that was bigger and better than it was, and he should have been able to take us on further.
Yeah.
Within a year and a half, he's allowed us to dream again, which is something we weren't doing before. But he should not have inherited the mess that he did, and that's where my big disappointment comes. And that's where I think, actually, right now, this team should be a lot better than it is. So, I think when you look at this team, this group of players, everything that Ange has done, he's overachieved. He's given us belief that we could get out the group. I'm still going to believe that there's a slim chance that we might, but ultimately, yeah, we've had a few reality checks, and where we are is probably Europa League level. That's where we're at in Europe. Have this conversation in a year and a half's time. If Ange is still in the job, still here, still doing these things, I think we're looking at a team that is capable of qualifying from a Champions League group. But yeah, we're probably not there yet. So, I don't know. I'm a dreamer.
Well, you've got to be in it.
That's what I still think we can get through. But, it's a long shot now.
Yeah, it is. But a great amount of the players, a great number of the players that would be considered maybe in the 16 or 18 top players at Celtic who are playing or are backup have got 2 or 3 Champions League games to their name. And I think we need to consider that. I mean, even players who are big players for us, like Carter Vickers, he hasn't got a huge amount of Champions League experience. And I think that this season will pay dividends, but it will come next year. And the biggest disappointment in Europe, I think, since Ange has come in, was Bodo Glimt last season. I think there were some really positive signs in a number of the games in the Europa League campaign, Kevin. But the disappointment was, when we dropped into the Conference League and were inevitably knocked out. I think he gets a bit of a free hit at the Midtjylland game because, as you say, he walked into an absolute situation that should never have been as bad as it was, and almost scraped through. Let's not forget, it was after extra time that Midtjylland disposed of us when we were playing an 18-year-old in his first senior start, Dane Murray. Stephen Sloan, let's get some of the thoughts of the contributors and the commenters into the show. Stephen Sloan, who is a long-time supporter of Acsom, welcome to the show. We've got about 800 tuning in. We're streaming on the YouTube channel of Acsom and also the Twitter channel of Celtic Down Under. We collaborate on the match days, but in terms of the times, I don't think it's a good time for the guys when it's about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night UK time. Men against boys in that second half. We clearly needed to make changes on the hour mark, but Ange waits until the 75th minute when it's too late and then only gives GG 10 minutes. I'll take third place. Well, there's a criticism there in the decision making of Ange when it comes to the substitutes, but you're talking about in the second half. I think the stats will show that it was a far more dominant performance by Leipzig in the second half. Of course, it was. When you look at the shots on goal in the first half, Celtic had 10, Leipzig had 7, I think it was. That flipped in the second half dramatically. But if you look at the kind of half-time status of the first 3 games, or the first 50-minute status of the first 3 games, we're level. We're level after 50 minutes in the first 3 games. And then I think it starts to show, the inexperience shows, they start to pick the lock, Kevin, and a team like Leipzig wants to get that second goal. When you've handed it to them on the plate, by the way, then it could then get to 3 and 4, and then you start worrying about the confidence and how much it is actually doing for the players at that level. But Stephen makes the point that there's a criticism there of Ange. Do you think that's a fair criticism of Ange with the subs, or was it down to the fact that we didn't have as much quality as we're used to on the bench tonight?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of the latter. I take the point, because normally he makes a change around the hour mark or 65 minutes. He normally does something a bit earlier. But when you look at the bench, who was the game changer that was going to come on? And maybe there's the thought after the second goal, which was about 61 minutes, the second goal that gets disallowed, there's maybe that thought as well that creeps in the back of the mind that says, it doesn't matter what we do, this is going to be our night, actually. Mm-hmm. We've got 2 massive breaks here. We can't screw this up from this point on. Something, we will go and win this game. We'll pick it back up. Their heads might go down after that, because it's, their second big decision that's gone against them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's a few different things that's maybe come into play there. With hindsight, you probably want to make changes earlier, but then who do you bring on? Because I don't think there's anyone who was going to change the game. Haksabanovic, although he's got 20 minutes, but he didn't make a big impact on it really when he came on. James Forrest, 4th appearance of the season, didn't do very much. There was no one else that was going to change the game, really. So I'm not sure. In normal circumstances, I think you could make that as a really valid criticism, but he didn't have the options to done tonight. And let's be honest as well, as you said, and look at it. They were a top team. They just overran us in the second half.
Look at that third goal. Look at that third goal, right? As soon as they score, anybody, it is a different level, Kevin. As soon as a team scores against Celtic, I'm trying to think, right, how could we have prevented that goal? I said this about the Modric goal as well. By the way, sorry, I apologise for the cat's choir in the background if you can hear it. No disrespect to the band.
It's usually a proper cat that's giving his choir here.
It is wee Pirlo making a guest appearance. But sometimes you've just got to look at a goal in a bit of admiration. And I think that against Real Madrid, Modric's goal was like that. He would pick the lock no matter how much security you had there. He would have got in. He would have found a way. And if you blocked that first, I mean, the way he finished that, with the outside of the wrong boot, because he knew that was the only way he was going to get it in. And then you watch that move tonight, and how sharp and crisp that move was. That was just outstanding. And I don't think if you're trying to critique the performance or analyse the game, you can do much about that. It's the second goal that's the frustration for me, because we've sold the jerseys. We've done something that's really basics. And if there was momentum and that wee bit of belief you were talking about, because things were going our way, the VAR decisions were going our way, that just punches it right out at you when your most experienced player in the squad is doing something like that. And I think that there was a similar thing. I remember when Near Beaton got sent off against Midtjylland, and you think to yourself that you've got a scenario there where you really are up against it, and you manage to get a lead through a 19-year-old kid who's making his debut in Lille Abada, and then he starts trying to poke somebody's eye out, and he's one of the most experienced players on the park. You don't expect it from that type of player, and Joe Hart done it tonight. So the third goal, there's nothing you can do about that. That's just absolutely, supreme quality. And the first goal was as well, by the way. You're not stopping it. As valiant as Juranovic was in trying to keep it out. But it's the second goal, and it's the things that you have got control over, Kevin, that we need to improve on. The slack passing. That thing at the back, that's been an issue for as long as Hart's been at Celtic. Now, it's the way Ange wants us to play, and it's brought us a lot of success. Do you think it is a situation where Hart will never be suited to that style of play? Because how many times have we said Heart's in mouth moment with Joe Hart with the ball at his feet? And I have totally bought into the Joe Hart thing. And I think it is a collective tonight. There was a lot of slackness in our play this evening. But I'm just disappointed. I really am that an experienced performer like him has done that. But sometimes you've also got to sit back, Kevin, and just say, by the way, that's a quality side that we're up against tonight. And there's nothing we can do to prevent them from scoring that third goal. What do you say if you're the gaffer to
No.
the team tonight?
Oh, good question. What do you say? To talk about the second goal again, I think the killer with that is it's Joe Hart, and he is the most experienced player there. And he's the one player that you should be relying on not to make that kind of mistake. And that's the killer, and that's the one where, again, we've seen the movie. We've shot ourselves in the foot many, many times in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't expect to see it again tonight, but there you go. We did. The third goal is unreal. The pass from Nkunku, the control, the weight of the pass across from Simakan as well, and then even just Silva doesn't rush the finish. So calm, effortless. Their first disallowed goal was an unbelievable goal as well. The one that Nkunku just lifts over Hart.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're Postecoglou, you've got to just take the team and have them watch that game again and tell them, this is what I want to see from you. Because we've spoken about Nkunku as being this great player, very technical, great touch, good layoffs, brilliant control, vision, finishing, the full shebang as a forward. But there's moments in that game where he's tracking back, and there's one in the second half. He makes a slide tackle on Abelgard and wins the ball. So you're getting this level of work rate from him as well.
Yeah.
And we want to see that from Jota. Because
we
Jota's a
absolutely do.
similar kind of player, then that skillful, creative player. But when it comes to the defensive side, he switches off. So we've got to use this game and just be like, take little moments from it to individual players and say, what he did tonight, I want to see that coming from you more often.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only way we can do it, because there's no point kind of reading the riot act after a game like that. We were beaten by a better team. We made silly errors and we were punished for them. So you go away, and I think we've said it quite a few times actually, you go away and work and making sure you don't make those silly passes again. And we keep on doing it. But with time and with repetition and with work in the training pitch, you've got to hope that we will kind of coach that out of us. And then I think it's probably going back to the point that you've made, and it's the one that I keep on forgetting when I look at the team, because I realise there's a lot of good players, They're very inexperienced at this level. And it will all come with time, which is why maybe in a year's time or 2 years' time, it's a different conversation, because the players are older, they're wiser, they're more experienced. And hopefully by that point, if we could keep the key elements of this group together, we will become a more realistic Champions League side.
Yeah. I mean,
tonight it's just about accepting that we're beaten by a better team.
Yeah, you lick your wounds. And again, though, I'm looking at some of the performances that we have faced, some of the players that we've faced in the first three games. So if we rewind to the Real Madrid, obviously there was the big names, the guys that we knew all about. But in terms of like players that are probably still regarded as emerging, up and coming, they're going to move elsewhere other than the Real Madrid example of Vinicius Junior. You look at that type of player, he's one of the finest talents in European football. That's what we're up against. And what we are trying to do is we're trying to compete with that kind of level, Kevin, right? When the majority of that team have been assembled on a shoestring in terms of European football, right? So you're talking about what we were saying earlier with John Hughes, actually, the amount of players that were brought in for under £2 million. There's 4 or 5 of them who, by the way, have absolutely shone since they've come in. But it is the levels that we're at.
There's players in that team who will have cost us less than the annual wage of Luka Modric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's absolutely what you're up against. Mm-hmm. Real Madrid can spend on wages, but we're not spending on transfer fees. And I think that's something that at times we need to maybe remember to help put these games into a bit more perspective.
It is perspective. You look in 5 years' time, and I'm sure a Celtic State of Mind will still be broadcasting and making videos and hopefully, offering some kind of balance after disappointments like this evening. And you look at the performances and the career that, let's say, Vinicius Junior has. In the second game, we all know about Mudryk. This time next year, where will he be? Who knows? And then tonight, again, you look at Nkunku, is that how you pronounce his name? He was outstanding tonight, and I think that type of player will be some of the finest talent in European football. And we're up against it, and we're a young team, we're inexperienced, we're still trying to gather a bit of momentum in terms of what Ange is instilling in the squad, the mentality, the philosophy. And not only that, Kevin, but what some of our best elements of that team are missing. So we've got tonight, obviously, the two centre-halves out, and then for part of the game, their captain's out. So I'm trying to be as balanced as I can, because some of the discussion that I've seen already on the Facebook page and coming through on the comments is about, can we live with this team even at Celtic Park? So I'm going to throw that one at you before I bring in some comments. We're talking about the must-win games at Celtic Park. We know that there's an alchemy or an alchemy about Celtic Park where the fans can make special things happen if it all comes together. We've seen it so many times. But is the quality is that gap too wide when it comes to a team like Leipzig, for example?
Yeah, so I think today's game it's probably an eye-opener for a lot of us that don't watch Leipzig very often to realise just how good they are, right? And they're a quality team. But I said to you at the start, and I'll say to you next week if I'm on doing the show with you then, we're at Celtic Park, we've got a chance, as good a chance to win this game as any. 60,000 Celtic fans giving it loudly for 90 minutes. It's a frightening prospect for the opposition team. I don't care how experienced the player you are, it can be a frightening place to go. We've shown for long spells, decent spells in games, we're able to compete. We've taken everyone up into 50, 55 minutes or thereabouts so far. Mm-hmm. If we can get in front at Celtic Park, we can win that game. I'll even after watching that tonight and knowing how good they are, and I think they'll score at Celtic Park, but I still think that there is just something about us at home and this team at home, right? We've had good teams before where the fans haven't always got behind them, but for some reason under this team there's more of a connection, under Ange, there's more of a connection to the team between the fans now, and I just, I think we've got good players in the team. Jota at home is a different player than he is away from home. He'll go there. Giakoumakis perhaps to be a bit more physical option. Have Carter Vickers back at the heart of the defence would make a huge difference. Mm-hmm. McGregor fit, hopefully, for the full 90 minutes makes a big difference. There's reasons from that game today that we could say if we could take these small elements and just play like that for a bit more, there's no reason why we can't win next week. Yeah. No reason why they can't win either, because they're a quality team. But you've got to go into it and think we can, because if you don't think you can win it, you won't win it. So
the other ones are thrown to the mix. Yeah, the other ones are thrown to the mix is on top of the names you've mentioned, is Hatate and O'Reilly, because I don't think what we've seen yet has been the vintage performance from either of those two. I thought Hatate was brilliant against Real Madrid, but the vintage performance that I think we will get at some point in this campaign at this level. And if that happens whilst everything else is clicking into place like you were explaining there, then you start believing again. And that's the mystical nature of Ange Postecoglou over the Celtic support. Lane are, honestly, I think our forwards have let us down with finishing during the Champions League campaign. Good enough in our own league, but not finishing their chances here. Hopefully we keep fighting and use this to learn. I think we will learn. I think Ange Postecoglou learns quickly. I keep saying that, and he will be analysing this to the nth degree to pick holes in his own performance and his team's performance to ensure that improves. Egyptian King, gutted. I honestly thought we had a chance. I think Kevin and I did as well. If you watched that pre-match, I think we thought we had a chance. And like you're saying there,
I thought we had a chance for sure.
Yep, and then Jota scores. first 5 minutes of the second half, and you think we've got a chance, just like we did. We thought we had a chance 50 minutes in against Real Madrid and Donetsk to get a win against Donetsk. It's decorating individual mistakes cost us every time. Lack of concentration and poor game management evident. We will finish with 2 points. Well, we'll see. We shall see if that will be the case.
Disagree. I think we'll beat Shakhtar at home. I'm fairly confident we can do that because we showed enough over there that we should have won that game. So I reckon we'll get at least 5.
And we also learn about the opponents very quickly. You watch how Ange approached last year's campaign, and I have used this in the past, this example of Bayer Leverkusen would have come to Celtic Park and beaten us 4-0. And I know that a lot of people thought we performed well and, individual errors, etc., etc. But they compare that against the game that we played away from home against Bayer Leverkusen. I think this is a team that finished third in the Bundesliga, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a team of high calibre, as are Leipzig. And the performance and the result that we saw over in Germany, I think 2 months later, Kevin, if you can, compare and contrast the two fixtures at Celtic Park and in Germany, Ange learns very, very quickly. So he will, analyse the opposition massively before the game on Tuesday next week. And I hope you can join me on Tuesday next week as well. Just like the 800 or so who have joined us live tonight, Kevin, it's always an absolute pleasure to talk Celtic. Despite the result this evening, I always enjoy watching it and talking with Kevin and everybody else on A Celtic State of Mind. If you enjoy what we do, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to buy some merchandise like the Shamrock top behind me, Kevin's got one of them. Click the link underneath the video. You can also vote for us at the Football Content Awards. We're going down to Manchester in November. And let's hope we can come up with another award for the trophy cabinet. It's been an absolute pleasure tonight. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. And Kevin McCluskey, thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you very much, Paul.